Hey everyone, Jake here from CVP. Today we're taking a deep dive into RED's newest camera, the V-RAPTOR X, and it features a newly developed 8K VistaVision global shutter sensor. Yes, a full-frame global shutter sensor in a readily available cinema camera. In today's video, we're going to take a look at how this new sensor performs compared to RED's existing cameras, take a look at what's new, and see what images this exciting new camera can capture. This new sensor is available in both the V-RAPTOR and V-RAPTOR XL bodies, with slight changes on them to show that they are different from the previous models. The new X versions of these cameras share a massive amount with them, including the same mix of formats, frame rates, same inputs and outputs, and same operating system and body design. The biggest difference with the RAPTOR X is of course the new sensor, but there are a few other specific differences between the X and the original Raptors as well. We've managed to shoot a few different things with the RAPTOR X, including heading down to Boneyard Forge in Twickenham to film a wand making class, and we even got a little bit involved and made this wand for the office. The new 8K VistaVision global shutter sensor inside the RAPTOR X is a fantastic achievement for RED. It's the same size, resolution and pixel pitch as the previous VistaVision sensor used in the original Raptor, which means all existing lenses and adapters that are used with the OG V-RAPTOR will work here with no trouble. The X features a redesigned sensor cavity to improve stray light mitigation and improve overall contrast compared to the previous generation of Raptor in extreme scenarios. This is similar to what RED implemented to the Super 35 Raptor and Komodo X. This sensor does seem to be stitched, but I didn't run into any internal reflection issues during my time testing the camera. The Raptor cameras already have excellent readout speeds considering that they are using rolling shutters, but in certain situations you will still see artifacts from this design, such as the jello effect when filming fast subjects or situations, or light sources splitting like a photography flash. This is where the key benefit of a global shutter comes in. Because the whole sensor is being read out at the exact same instance, these artifacts don't occur. Our fantastic in-house engineer Raf has made us a tool for measuring the readout speed of sensors. This is something that we'll be including in our reviews going forward. It was inspired by Cine D's methodology, so shout out to them. It uses an LED flashing at 300Hz and a program that Raf has created to read the amount of lines that we can see the sensor capturing to calculate the speed of the readout. The more lines that we can see here, the slower the speed. We can see the difference between the RAPTOR X's global shutter and Raptor's rolling shutter in these examples pretty obviously. The original Raptor VV's readout speed was roughly 8 milliseconds, which is very good for a sensor its size and resolution, but in certain scenarios such as filming cars, action, sports, or moving plates, having a global shutter will be massively beneficial. Is a global shutter essential for narrative work? No. But there are huge portions of the filmmaking and image capturing industry that will be very excited by the sensor. Productions such as wildlife, sports, automotive, aerial photography, visual effects, and virtual production will all benefit from these lack of artifacts. However, depending on the sensor design, global shutter sensors often have a loss in sensitivity and dynamic range over rolling shutter sensor counterparts. But RED are claiming that this new sensor should have the same dynamic range as the original V-RAPTOR VV, with comparable low light performance as well. These are bold claims, so let's take a look at how it actually performs. For our Latitude Tests, we grabbed an original 8K VV Raptor and an Alexa 35. Here's a breakdown of our methodology. And of course, one thing to bear in mind here is that these results have no noise reduction applied, so some of these clips will clean up nicely with a bit of work in post. Anyway, let's take a look at the results. Looking at underexposure, we can see that the regular Raptor and X are very similar. The VV looks more purple towards the deeper stops, whereas the X shifts more green. But I think the X overall is more color neutral. Overall noise looks very similar, but the X may actually edge it out slightly here, and I think holds onto color better than the VV, which I really wasn't expecting. The LX35 is more unsaturated than the other cameras and has larger, more noticeable noise. If we enable extended highlights in this mode, we can see noise lift slightly. This also occurs if we just look at some port cap black shots. This is currently easily correctable, but when I brought this up to RED, they indicated that it's a known issue that will be resolved as soon as possible. and as this is an SDK side issue, raw files with this issue can be remastered once fixed. When it comes to overexposure, unsurprisingly the Alexa 35 performs incredibly well, as we'd expect from our previous tests. Holding on to info way past the other cameras, the VV and X perform incredibly closely to each other, with maybe the X having slightly better performance at +4. However, the Raptor X has a little trick up its sleeve, its new extended highlights mode. If we look at the Raptor X clips with the extended highlight mode turned on, you can see a really big difference. With it off, we can see clipping from around 4 1/3 stops over, but with it on, even at 7 stops over, we can see no shift on Sam's skin or on our color chart. This is incredibly impressive and really does show how much range this mode gives you on top of the already good performance of the Raptor X. Overall, I'm very impressed by what RED have managed to achieve with the X. Its latitude is pretty much the same as the VV, which given the switch to a global shutter is very impressive. It performs really well in our underexposure tests, and then if you need Alexa 35 highlight retention, you can toggle on the extended highlights mode if you can. We'll be exploring this highlight mode a bit more in a bit. We also managed to get a Raptor X and regular VV on our OECF test chart, and from the looks of our testing, there really isn't any dynamic range difference between the two cameras with the extended highlights mode turned off. With it turned on, you'll of course have that extended range which we showed earlier. Looking at the noise profile of the cameras, when freshly black balanced, they look incredibly similar. The VV looks maybe a touch less defined, but they are very close to each other. In lower light situations, the X performs comparably to the original V-RAPTOR, which again, given it uses a global shutter, is impressive. Looking at our resolution chart, we can see that the new Raptor X performs almost identically to the original Raptor. It resolves really well with minimal aliasing, with extended highlights on and off. It's good that RED has maintained this across the jump to a global shutter. The new Raptor X sensor has been designed around producing the same excellent colours as the rest of the DSMC3 line. In the several side-by-side shots that we've done with the Raptor X and the original VV Raptor, we can see just how close they are. This means you will easily be able to slide this into existing RED workflows without any real difference and be able to cut it alongside existing RED footage. RED's raw workflow is the best on the market in my opinion, and the X is still fantastic to process. Even the 8K rushes are manageable, especially compared to other 8K formats. The images we've captured with the X look as clean and nice as you would expect from an original VV sensor. The Raptor X can also shoot the exact same impressive frame rates as the existing Raptor cameras. This means that you can capture the full 8K 17:9 of the sensor up to 120 frames per second, and then as you window in on your sensor, you can do 4K 17:9 240 frames per second, and up to 600 frames per second in 2K in a 2.4:1 aspect ratio. The quality is just as excellent as you would expect from a RED camera here. It's super clean and detailed. High frame rate really is something that RED do very well. With this new global shutter, RED have managed to introduce 2 new functions that they are putting under the Global Vision umbrella. These are Extended Highlights and Phantom Track. Extended Highlights, which is denoted as EH in camera, is exactly what it sounds like. A mode in camera where you can extend the highlight performance by around 3 to 4 stops, which is pretty impressive. This new system looks like it's capturing 2 different exposures extremely quickly and then combining them to give us close to 20 stops of dynamic range. This isn't affecting how the camera's regular dynamic range is mapped, it just extends it. RED did something very similar with their DSMC2 systems called HDR-X, but the technology behind this new tech has improved a lot since then. You can see the results of this new extension in camera while monitoring, whereas you would have to wait to post to see the results of HDR-X. When playing back in camera as well, you can see the extended highlights, which is good for checking if you have any artifacting while still on set. This is currently a beta function, so its results may change and improve as RED refine the process. This will only work with R3D files currently, not ProRes, but it will be baked into your proxies when you're shooting R3D and ProRes proxies. This mode can produce some really excellent results, but there are some limitations and best ways to utilize it. The maximum ISO that you can use in this mode is 1600, whereas you can normally push it all the way up to 12,800. It also halves the available frame rates when not in EH mode, but given how excellent the frame rates are with the Raptor already, for lots of situations, this will be a fair trade-off, and you can still capture 8K 60p RAW. Your compression is limited by its doubled frame rate limit, so 8K 60EH would be limited to LQ just like 8K 120 is. It also limits your shutter speed or angle. The available options will depend on your FPS. Here's a quick chart of a few of the different options that we grabbed. This mode also doubles your data rate, so if you're capturing 8K 60 with it turned on, it will have the same data rate roughly as 8K 120. Given it's capturing 2 exposures, this isn't too surprising. This means that you can very easily burn through cards, which we did when we were shooting, and now we have all these SSDs just for this one RAPTOR X project. We've shot so much using this mode, and I've looked at a lot of footage, so I want to try and draw some conclusions on when it's best to use it, how to get the most out of it, and show our findings. Its next limitation is due to how RED are doing this. As the camera is essentially taking 2 exposures one after the other, this does mean that some lighting, moving objects, and pans can result in some artifacting. It looks like the camera is capturing a higher shutter frame as well as your desired base shutter speed to achieve the extra highlight range. This means that your image can have 2 different looking motion blurs to them, which can look a bit odd sometimes. So if you have your shutter speed set to say 1/50th, the extended highlights frame looks to have a shutter speed of roughly 1/400th of a second. In situations where you've only got a little bit of clipping in frame and you want to pull it back like a window here, you won't see any weirdness. But take the shot of Gary working on an Ingenue EZ, where I have purposely overexposed Gary's skin with extended highlights on, and brought my ISO down in post, making this essentially an ISO 100 exposure. This is not how you should expose. Here we can see a sharper frame of Gary following the blurry base image. This isn't something you should do, but it's a great example of the 2 different motion blurs being blended, and it produces some bad looking artifacts. A more controllable showcase of what's happening here are these examples of a fan. For these, I shot at a few different frame rates, shutter speeds, and with the new mode on and off. Motion with extended highlights on in camera but turned off in post, and with it off in camera looks identical, which is good to see. With extended highlights turned on, we can see some funky things happening across the different tests. We've got a few examples of ghosting as well, such as this scene where you have a subject with an overexposed background behind them, and when they move in front of it, you will see some ghosting. We've got a good few examples of this. Take this shot of these trees with the sun behind them. We can see a good amount of information coming back when we turn the EH mode on, and everything looks good with minimal motion. When I start panning though, we can start to see some ghosting. This is pretty subtle here, but in some other frames it could be noticeable. I managed to send some of my test clips to RED, and they ran them through their latest development process, and sent back some improved images where the motion blur and ghosting does look better. So I'm really excited to see how they improve this feature further going forward. I can see this ability to effectively capture 2 different shutter speeds of the same image also being a unique opportunity for people to be creative, as you could use the slowest shutter speed possible for your base dynamic range and then overexpose the portions of your image you want to have a faster shutter speed. It's a very specific use case, but I think it could be a cool way to use this mode. I wish we could go a touch slower on the base shutter, so the extended highlights frame could be a regular shutter speed. The function itself is very easy to toggle on and off in the menu. Another really nice thing is that it's toggleable in post too, and it's completely non-destructive. So if you have the mode turned on and then you get into post and notice some artifacting you don't like, you can simply turn this off and you've got a regular image with no other compromise in image quality, just the restrictions that I mentioned earlier. But this is where exposing correctly is very important. When exposing, the live monitoring feed and exposure tools will take this extended highlights mode into account. This includes your traffic lights and geoscopes where the extended stops are crammed into the 16th stop. One scenario worth considering though is that if you do decide to shoot with extended highlights on, exposed using this new clip point and then get into post and you notice some artifacting that you don't like, you toggle it off, you may have clipped your original range's highlights. So just be careful if your shot does have motion that could cause these artifacts. One way around this is to bind this extended highlight mode to a button so you can quickly toggle it on and off to check your exposure with it off before committing to an exposure. I think the best way to use this is expose using your original dynamic range and then toggle extended highlights if you have something like a window, the sun, or other bright source in frame that you want to bring back down. You can easily bind the extended highlights toggle to a user button or into a user menu. Personally, I think binding it to the front record button is a nice place to have it. Currently, clips captured with extended highlights on can only be imported into RED Cine X Pro, but RED has made the SDK available immediately for NLEs to implement into their programs. So for all of our examples, we processed our raw clips in Cine X and exported them out as ProRes for us to cut and include in this video. One thing I noticed was the extended highlights toggle won't show retained highlights if your playback is set to quarter res, so you need to be at half res or higher. The difference in playback and render time is substantial when turning extended highlights on and off on the same clip, which isn't too surprising, but another thing worth considering when deciding to shoot with it. This new mode is definitely a big step up from HDRX, which would really struggle with motion. There is definitely going to be a slight learning curve on how to best use this and what kind of lighting, compositions, and movement works best with it for your tolerances. But it certainly isn't something you'd need or want to use all the time. We've managed to capture so many examples where this new mode looks really good, and it is impressive what RED have managed to achieve with this new mode. The original VV-RAPTOR 8K sensor already performed excellently, but this new mode and the RAPTOR X sensor really does push it even further, and as long as you understand its limits and know when and how to use it, it can produce excellent results. Hopefully us laying out all these examples and telling you what we've learned will mean that when you get your hands on the RAPTOR X, you'll know what shots to turn this mode on for and which situations you should avoid. Anyway, if you have any more questions about it, please let us know below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you want to buy anything you see in this video or any other filmmaking or photography gear, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. Phantom Track is the second feature under the Global Vision umbrella, and looks to streamline workflows of VP productions that are using a technique similar to ghost frame or frame remapping, where multiple backgrounds can be flashed on an LED wall and captured or broadcast simultaneously. Phantom Track allows for the capture of distinct clips in each subframe slice, giving users one take with the green screen and another with the virtual environment, within the same R3D file. This way you can have a distinct recording with an Unreal environment in, for example, and one with a green screen background for post VFX. This is already being done by some productions by doubling their frame rate, but RED's implementation will save a lot of post-processing time and it's much tidier. RAPTOR X can also capture two 8K 60 Phantom tracks, which is really not possible with any other single camera system. It also allows for the two different feeds to be output via the SDIs independently, which will be helpful on set. In camera, you are limited to recording just 2 tracks, but when paired with the RED Connect, you can do 4 slices. So when you get the camera set to 4K 240, you'll be able to get 4 60fps streams. This is a very cool addition that I'm sure VP productions are going to be interested in testing. The Komodo has been very popular with the virtual production market because of its global shutter, so I can see this camera being popular too. The combination of 8K, VistaVision, global shutter, good control options, improved I/O over Komodo, and Phantom Track will make this an attractive option for these productions. If you're interested in VP solutions, make sure to come down and check out our new virtual production section in our central London showroom. More details about that can be found in the description. Oh, and by the way, you can't use these two new modes at the same time, which isn't too surprising given how they work. Another change for these new cameras is their improved audio boards. This means you have better preamps and overall audio quality. We wanted to give this a quick test, so we grabbed an A-box and a regular Raptor and recorded them using the same mic with me in the same position. We immediately noticed just how much more gain the old Raptor needed to pick up my voice at the same volume than the X, and the X does sound better. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. I would personally love to see RED, or any other camera manufacturer for that matter, shake up the camera industry by adding 32-bit flow internally into their cameras. I think that paired with how flexible R3D is, it could make an incredible post combination. Another small update is how slow you can drag the shutter for more creative motion blur effects. With the Raptor, you were limited with your shutter speed in certain frame rates. With the X, you can go down to 1 5.99th of a second when shooting 5.99 frames per second at a 23.98 base project. This means you'll be able to get some cool looking dragged shutter footage now, whereas with the Raptor, your shutter speed was capped at the same frame rate to 1 23.98th of a second. This also applies in the camera's time-lapse mode, where at the same 1 second interval, the slowest shutter is 1/6 of a second, whereas it's 1/24 of a second on the original Raptor. I checked on the Komodo X and it behaves the same as the Raptor X. On RED's website, they've put autofocus on the X page, so I asked them if there's been any changes or updates with the X over the original Raptor VV cameras, and unfortunately there has not, but the X does feature their most up-to-date system, and it's pretty helpful to have in a camera where you wouldn't necessarily expect to have usable autofocus. RED's DSMC3 cameras have had face tracking in for a while now, but I hadn't fully used and explored it until the testing I did with this. This feature is still something that RED are improving as it's still in beta. You can tap to autofocus with the DSMC3 monitor, but you currently have to go into the AF menu on the monitor here to do so, otherwise the camera thinks you're trying to bring up tools. Tapping on the main screen and having the focus switch would be a good tweak, as it would make shooting much faster for people who do want to use autofocus. With the ability for you to toggle off the PageOS tools and pages now, to give the monitor a more DSMC2 feel, this would be a great addition and is something I have suggested to RED. You can also tap to focus when it's in its face detect mode. When face detection is turned on, you can tweak a few different parameters. This includes face priority and how the camera behaves when no face is found. Tracking performance itself is actually pretty good considering RED are still pretty new to face detect autofocus. It recognises faces well, but it doesn't feel quite as good at picking up obscured or side-on faces as other systems on the market. It's great to see RED refining this system more and more, and while it's definitely usable now, it's only going to get better going forward. Personally, I would love to see object tracking added. The Raptor X brings a new in-camera checksum for every clip that you record. In the menu, this is called Generate ASC MHL. This stands for American Society of Cinematographers Media Hash Lists. This will save a lot of time in post when performing a checksum, and it will be great for camera to cloud workflows as well. When you have cloud upload enabled, the camera automatically enables this feature, which is helpful. With this, they also added the ability to remount media. We've ejected media accidentally before, so this will be helpful from time to time. There have also been some smaller changes which we didn't explore too much, but here's a quick list. Hit pause to give them a read. We mentioned in our previous video that RED also announced their DSMC3 compact EVF, and one thing that we didn't mention was that you can't use the DSMC3 monitor and the EVF at the same time, only one or the other. You can still control the key shooting settings from the EVF or even the side LCD on the camera, which means you don't lose camera control functionality without the DSMC3 monitor, but it's still worth thinking about. If you want to use an EVF and a monitor at the same time, you can use a small HD with RED camera control, but it won't use the pogos on the camera, it will use the ports on the back. I wish you could do both the DSMC3 monitor and the EVF though, it would be so much cleaner. With the introduction of the EVF, RED also added the ability to put status and text over the video preview, which can be used with or without the surround overlay as well. The body of both the regular V-Raptor and the XLX are essentially identical to the previous Raptor and XL, apart from the slight changes in colour of the mounts and clear X branding to show that they are different from the previous cameras. This is helpful as it means functionally they are the same camera, and they use the same rigging and accessories, which will make things easier for us recommending rigs and accessories, and for rentals wanting to add to their fleets. It really is impressive the features and image quality that is packed into the Raptor form factor, and it will make the X a popular choice to rig into unique configurations where a Komodo may have sat before. The big question we had when RED told us about the X was, does this new global shutter sensor compromise the performance of the original V-Raptor VV sensor to have the benefits of a global shutter? Well, in this case, it seems like RED have worked some magic and you now have the benefits of a global shutter from the Komodo paired with the almost identical image quality and performance of the original VV Raptor. And of course, you have a few nice new features sprinkled on top as well. I can see this camera becoming very popular with people who need the benefits of a global shutter while not compromising on image quality. And for those who don't, you have the option to grab the X for the extra features or grab a regular VV at a lower price point. The Raptor X is available and shipping now, so if you want to grab one, head over to our website, or if you want to get your hands on it first, book a demo with us today. Anyway, let us know what you think of the RED V-RAPTOR X, and if you have any further questions in the comments below. And if you like the video, please give it a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.